Hey everybody, and welcome to the Patty G Show. I am your host, Patty G, here with Gordy Rush from Guaranty Media. We're going to be talking about the media side of things for radio, sports, really everything that you're kind of involved with. I'm kind of excited to see where it goes. So thank you, Gordy, for coming on the show.
Thanks
man.
for
I
having
really
me.
Appreciate it.
Beautiful. Hey, congrats on beautiful house. I love this setting.
Thank you.
This is pure, and the equipment, first class. I mean, this is A+ podcast.
I love that. That's all thanks to Carl. So
Carl, you're the man.
The equipment's Carl.
Shout out Farm Bureau, my man Ronnie Anderson, Avery, good people.
So for those that may not know who you are, Gordy, the two or
Right.
three of them that are there, who do you define yourself as?
Yeah, I mean, I'm first and foremost, I'm a husband, and I'm a father of 3 kids. My wife Ashley, and I have 3 children, 12, 9, and 7. G. He's Gordon the 4th. We were going to name him Ramsey, and my dad died 10 days before he was born, and I'm the 3rd. And I'm just a big believer in things happen for a reason, so we named him. He's the 4th, and I didn't like that. That got an English royalty in too much, but I was against it. But we went with G, so that was my nickname. People called me G. So I got G. I got Jax after the great New Orleans beer, right?
Absolutely.
There are other reasons, but we spelled it Jax, and then JJ, Jordan Jean. So I got 3 kids, 6 letters. And so I think that's, first and foremost, right? I'm a Christian, so I feel like I have a good walk and believe, obviously, in my relationship with God. Went to Jesuit New Orleans and set a real good educational, fundamental, and also spiritual base. And then, I enjoy, I think from having athletics in my background, I'm just by nature, I'm competitive. And so what I enjoy about my life, I enjoy about my career is every morning I look forward to, I look in the mirror and I'm excited to go to work.
Right.
I think it's a blessing, right? And, people ask career advice, so this or that. Find a job, find something you're excited to go do.
Yeah.
And I'm blessed for, been able now 51 years old, happy, love what I do.
That to me is like what defines success, being happy in what you do every day.
Right, because I think everything else will flow. Money
Yeah.
will flow, and everything else. If you're not, I've always been in a sales some way, shape, or form. If I had to sell vacuums, I'd suck. I'd be no good. I hate vacuums, right? There's nothing about vacuums. But,
Right.
I enjoy the media business. I enjoy radio. And so I really feel like the God put that in my life, not only as a blessing to me, but an opportunity to give back,
Yeah.
right? Young broadcasters, or maybe it's charities and things of that nature. So, I mean, for that, I'm thankful.
And how did you get into the broadcasting world, the media side of sales?
Well, I think, on air was the first opportunity. So when I was in graduate school, I'd stopped playing at LSU in 1990. 90 was my last season. So 91, 92, I started in the MBA program. And Kevin Ford, who does some outdoor stuff, he and I graduated from Jesuit together, and they needed somebody to do post-game radio. So I got involved a little bit with some of the on-air. And from that point, Eddie Martini is a guy from Rummel High School, went to LSU, probably 4 or 5 years older than me. He was running WJBO, WFMF, and they needed somebody to sell. They wanted me to come do the on-air and sell the LSU broadcast. And at that time, Jenny Media, it was George Jenny, had it right here on Government Street, not too far from that Rocco, right next to the Rocco's Pizza area. I believe that's what it is, right? That's what Lit Pizza and Ozzy and them have, that little spin-off concept.
The little Rocco.
Right there. I believe it's kind of like it's a different business now, but that's where I started in sales and broadcast.
So you went straight from sports to on air to sales.
Well, I mean, it was sports on air, so did some on JBO, did like a nightly show, and always did all the football pre and post game for years. And then went out and sold. And so my background was not in mass comm. It was in business. And so for me, I always enjoyed doing the sports radio because it was fulfilling. Mike Archer was my coach, and on the exit interview, I said, "What do you think about me being a coach?" He said, "Gordy, you'd be great, but you'd have to travel a lot of places, and you're not going to make a whole lot of money initially." And I had the grad school thing working. So for me, doing the pre and post and doing the football kind of replaced being able to coach. So it's kind of been more of like a hobby, if you will. And it also opened up, put your name out there and opened up a lot of doors you can go and sell behind. So it was kind of a joint deal, right?
And so that kind of, I guess, gave you a good position to go into sports, to selling sports, saying, "Hey, I played it, I was in there, I was an athlete." It only makes sense.
So, hey, get in here. What's going on with the team? This, that, blah, blah. Okay, where do I sign? I mean, it was good like that. So, it opened up that, and from that got into some more radio. But that's how I got started in the business. That would have been 1992, so close to 30 years now. Gosh, that's aging.
28 years, yeah.
Shit, I'm old. 28 years, yeah.
That was before I was a thought, honestly.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that.
But anyway, so how do you even go about selling some sports radio? I mean, what do you pitching to these people in that regard?
Well, I think the advantage of sports is that you have tremendous reach, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the amount of people that listen to an LSU baseball game, LSU football game is a tremendous size audience.
Absolutely.
And so I think, there's a specific message you want to be able to brand to that. One of the great campaigns, and a dear friend David Bondi with Luba, when they got started, they had a great commercial that Luba sounds like tuba, right? That's how they first branded. And remember that he's always used the LSU platform to do that. And so I think that's one of the advantages, right? I think there's pluses and minuses to every medium that's out there. Every medium can be effective: radio, TV, newspaper, you name it. I think for sports, you sell that. It's the huge audience.
Right. It's getting people that are going to be tuning in for the entire event. They're not going to chime in.
They're captive,
for a TV
right?
show.
Yeah. Unlike things with music, I don't like the song, I hit it.
Right.
Right. Or there people do that. If somebody's listening to, LSU baseball is a great example. You'll see back in the days when you could read diaries. You'll see people that just listen for what we call quarter hours, but for 3.5 hours,
mm-hmm.
they listen to the whole thing, don't touch a dial. Right. And so that's one of the formats that you get people that give you great time spent listening.
Okay. And so how do you, I guess on the metric side of things, are you able to, measure that for how many listeners are going throughout the baseball game?
Yeah, there's formulas.
Or is it more of...
we used to subscribe to Nielsen. We no longer do. I think it's an antiquated technology. They send basically 1,300 diaries out to a population of 650,000. And, the problem I have with it is that they'll send you $2, Patty, and we want you to write down what radio station you're listening to.
Okay.
Okay. And go ahead and go through all this trouble, write a small novel, fill out 8 pages of information about yourself, and we'll send you an additional $2. So you can get that for $4.
Okay.
The issue I have is that none of the three of us will ever spend time doing that.
No. So
if I'm an advertiser, do I give a rat's ass about reaching the people that actually fill that thing out? And so the demographics that we're looking to hit, especially with spoken word formats, they're not, unless you're 75 plus and you just have that much free time and
right.
you really enjoy filling out surveys. Nobody does that. So I think in the smaller, what we call smaller markets, unfortunately the technology, our rating system sucks. I'll be the first to say it.
Yeah.
Whereas, your podcast tonight, you'll know how many people exactly listen, how long they listen, where they listen. I can go on and on with that. So about 5 years ago, we just decided, we looked at Nielsen and said, don't need you no more.
Yeah, and that's...
And so, and then all the TV stations, they have a different metric, but
mm-hmm.
they did away from this diary type of diary type of recording measurement, if you will.
Yeah, that's like on that, like you said, once I finish this recording or once I post an episode to the podcasting platforms, I know exactly where they listen to it, who
right.
listened to it, and how long. Why is there not a technology, or is there a technology for radio that can kind of mimic those statistics?
Right. So I think the problem is that you've got to, what's the motivation for Ford or a car dealer to put that in the car, and is it cost effective? Right. I mean, Ford wants to own that technology, the GPS, and all the above for that.
Right.
And so, whereas your TV, every box, whatever you have here, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's Cox or if it's DirecTV, there's a metric, or obviously if it's digital TV, they know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because of radio and, outside of some of the newer technologies, Amazon just doesn't exist. And I think, that's one of the beautiful things about radio certainly has its challenges. It has its pluses, minuses. One of the beautiful thing in Baton Rouge, our traffic's so bad, and radio's still a prominent player in the automobile, right? Yeah. And so, unfortunately, they're not going to get access to they're not going to get access to be able to determine who's listening to what in the car.
Yeah, man, you can guarantee that if somebody's driving home at 5 o'clock, they're gonna be sitting in the car for at least an hour.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things of presentation, right? Do you want Matt Moscona's on ESPN or Jay Ducote? Here's a picture of Baton Rouge and the interstate, right? I don't need to tell you how many people are in their car and potentially listening to the radio.
Right, and so that's kind of the metrics for radio. But now y'all started to add in like Facebook Lives.
Right, and so I mean. The story goes back in 2014. There's a radio show every fall, and so I was with Flynn Foster, our president and owner, in Indianapolis, and the people from Merrill Lynch, who's the radio division of Merrill Lynch, did their projection. Well, radio is going to be down, and we see radio from 2014 to 2024 being down a -2 net over that period. And I'm, obviously people are I'm not going to go to a radio conference and roll out a lot of bad news. So she's blowing a little bit of smoke on my ass. I get that, right? So I looked at Flynn and I said, here's the deal. I mean, radio, TV, newspaper are traditional, and obviously the space is more competitive. We need to diversify, and we need to diversify now.
Right.
And, and what that led, bigger scheme, is that you're no longer just doing a radio show. It's content, and you're pushing it out wherever people will consume it.
Right.
So that's why we added Facebook Live. We're in the video space now on ESPN. I mean, we have 6 hours of programming on CST. We just moved from Vimeo to YouTube Live. We'll be happy to talk about that. Obviously, since that 2014, day in Indianapolis, we purchased and now partnered with Gatorworks. Mm-hmm. And they're killing it, Brian. I mean, it's just been phenomenal, right? We have Jay Ducote, and so we went from being a radio group to more diversified media group, if you will, from radio stations to more diversified media and heck tacos now, right? And so
yeah, with Jay Ducote.
But again, it comes back to now we have this huge megaphone. Here's 5 o'clock drive.
Right.
Now we got a chance to tell everybody about government taco and all the above, and so it puts, I think, Jay at a competitive advantage. So he's all part of that, and it's been an interesting road because we've been an independent, and so we're not one of the publicly traded companies. We're not over leveraged, right, and highly leveraged like some of them, and so we've been entrepreneurs of sort, right. We've been able to do things a lot of people in our industry just don't.
Yeah, and that's out. Whenever I had Brian from Gatorworks on, we kind of talked about, he wasn't even looking to sell Gatorworks at the time. So how do you kind of make that decision, or how do you know you're at the point where you can acquire another business that it makes sense?
Well, so what you saw in at least what I saw out there is you saw some again of our competitors that were trying to get third-party companies. Mm-hmm. And what I didn't like about it is I'm going to sit here and sell, hey, here's a web and you can do Facebook and what have you, and let me put you on a Zoom call with our expert in California. And so they had a third-party company. And the second thing, I think the competitive disadvantage for that, so you're not working with somebody local.
Right.
And then because you have a third party, right, see Walmart, I mean, you increase cost per thousand, increase costs. So, Flynn and I sat down and said, we need to find somebody here that's a great fit for us, fit with our culture and what have you, that could give that localized service, which we do. Mm-hmm. We were able to sink some capital in behind. And then the competitive advantage was we had the sales staff with all these relationships. A lot of time you have people that are in the space that are just technology, right? And, Brian's a rare breed that Ryan did a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And so it was a perfect marriage. So now we can go to a competitor and say, okay, for that same $10,000 you're doing, the schedule will or you can basically get the same amount of, cost per thousand or reach the same amount of people for $8,500 or spend 10 and reach more. So you can go in and it puts you in a better spot than the competition. So It's really been a great partnership, and kudos to Brian. I mean, the growth that he's had has been phenomenal.
Oh yeah, I mean he's getting what Company of the Year awards, just
Company of
left
the
and right.
Year, all the above.
Yeah, and so like for Guarantee's side, it's now you're selling the complete package. You're not. You're
Correct.
no longer selling airtime. You're selling airtime first, but
Right.
also your brand can use some improvement. Here's our partner company that can help you with that.
Right. So, I saw something last year, a conference I went to, in which they said, look, the average company went from dealing with 5 salespeople to 3.5. So, what happens then? My sales rep needs to have more tools in their belt, right? And I go into a company, I'm going to ask you, what's going on with your marketing? What are you doing with your media? So forth and so on. And then at some point, all right, I had a chance to look at your website. What are you doing digitally? What are you doing in terms of, what are you doing in social space? For us, targeted display, geofencing, and different tactics. And it's just a wider portfolio that we can go in there and offer. We want to be one of those 3.5 people. And so I now have a better chance to do so because, again, we have more tools in our belt.
Yeah, you're going from a radio company to now an assisted branding company. You're not just helping people get advertisements. You're not selling advertising space. You're helping those companies grow, and you're doing it all locally.
Right. When I started, I started on WJBO. So you had LSU, you had Rush Limbaugh. Still, Rush was kicking. He was in the height back in the early 90s. Not that he's still doing well, but I'd go in and say, hey, what about Lunch with Rush? That was it. So I'm one hammer, right? Now everybody got into what we call consolidated sales, a cluster sale. So one sales rep would sell all the radio stations. So we went from just Rush to 4 stations. Then we've added video. Now we have digital. We do some events. And so, I think that what we call as a customer needs analysis, that's the first call. I'd sit down and just learn a little bit about your business. I probably went from asking 8 questions now to probably 20 because you have to get more information. You need to know what the website looks like, what are they doing in the social space, so forth and so on.
Yeah. And so on that then led y'all further down to purchase the JD's line.
Right.
So what kind of was the strategic positioning for that purchase?
Well, obviously Jay was established, and so just a big believer in a little bit of me personally, radio-wise. I think it's about influencers, right? And so it's ratings is a piece of it, even though the people need to listen to the station, right?
Right.
But you need to have personalities that influence people to listen, influence people to buy their product.
Yeah.
And I think Jay had that, right? And I think a deeper discussion, we wanted to evolve a little bit on talk, right? I think we were behind our competitor, right, in the same lane. And we decided we're going to go a different direction, do something different. So we went a little bit younger skewed, a little bit more broader, new taste of talk. And so Jay, when we looked at that situation, yes, with everything we have, we can push the restaurant. He's done great with his products, which are taking off. He's an influencer. I mean, he fits perfectly where we were going and some of the stars that we had on staff. It was a perfect fit, and obviously he can anchor an afternoon drive on Talk 107.3.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to his show as much as I can on 4 to 6.
Yeah.
And it's great because it's not your normal afternoon talk show.
Correct. Right. Yeah. And I think that it needed to be something different.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was the, I talk about lanes a little bit and obviously Baton Rouge politics lean a little bit, right? Have for years. It's probably evolved some, but to their credit, WJBO had Hannity and had Rush Limbaugh. And so we had some conservative with that, but, I think that we just wanted to I launched Talk. I hired everybody over. I think a big piece of it, Matt Kennedy came for a year and decided he didn't want to do it anymore. And God bless him, we're still great friends, and he's done incredible for himself. But when you launch your radio station and your rock star leaves you, then it's on me, right? And look, the station didn't perform like we thought it would. We made changes. It's 100% on me. And I personally hired Bill, Kevin, and Clarence. I wish them nothing but the best, right? I mean, it's a collective interest and what have you. It just felt like for us to be successful long term, we needed to do something different.
Right.
I think we've done that now. Haldane comes to the platform, Brian Haldane, where we talk about he's on social, he's everywhere. He's ubiquitous, and he does that. He gets that space. Obviously, Ducote's a little something different. And we feel, Dave Ramsey's the number 3 talk show in America. And in terms of size, and the thing about Ramsey, I've been to this place in Nashville many a time. And I mean, Ramsey is more than just a radio show. I mean, he has a cult following. And so it's something different. And so I feel, passionate about that, especially spoken word, especially local spoken word going forward. And we're, I think, into developing, young people, young voices, what we want to do on the weekend and keep it local. Because I think that if you're local, you have a chance to be successful long term.
Right, and it's you be the kind of the sheriff of your own town.
Yes.
You grow locally first, and then everybody that is still local starts telling everybody outside the city.
Right, and I think this is a local connection. And, I think that what we've done on ESPN, obviously, it's been a home run. And, if you want to hear LSU, you want to hear Saints, you want to hear Pelicans, I'm reaching you on every platform, and it's working. And I mean, the amount of I promise you, it's the highest spot rate in Baton Rouge on those radio stations, and we move product. And, everywhere it's sticky. Everywhere we go, somebody's commenting about that, and I still do some endorsements, and I get feedback. You'll get calls and people that do that. That's what we're building and want to do on talk. We have 2 music stations, Eagle and Tiger. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, I have some concern about music, right? Long term, and so I got to be great in between the songs. I got to be local. I got to have big personalities that are connected between them, because there's music everywhere.
Right.
There's not local talk everywhere. You can't get Patty G talking about Baton Rouge necessarily, there. You can't get Haldane. I mean, how many places audio are you going to get people that are going to have the newsmakers on, unless you're going to wait till 10 o'clock at night. So we're passionate. I think local's our path, right? And I don't see our competitors investing, especially everything we're going through. They're not going to invest in local. I mean, they're consolidated. That's not their model, right? It's Kid Craddock. It's Guy. It's different programs like that. That's more syndication because of the scale that they're trying to achieve when they bought all that.
Yeah, they're trying to go all national,
right,
and grow to get as much reach as they possibly can, as quick as they can, rather than building up like what Dave Ramsey's got, a cult following locally. Yeah. If I can listen to, like, for example, Brian and I go to the same church. Yeah. If I can listen to Brian on the radio and see him at church on Sundays, that to me is like I'm listening to something local. It's tangible.
Yeah.
It's not just far out wherever they're recording their radio shows. It's local. It's here, and it's in my community, and they're relevant. They're talking about something that's not happening in other states all the time. It's, Jay's talking about what's happened here locally, what's happened in the community, and Brian the same thing.
Well, I mean, that's FCC gave at one point, that's what the license were for, to serve your community.
Yeah.
And then obviously it became a business, and not to knock our competitors, right? They expanded and they consolidated it when radio was at its peak. And so they're looking at different financials than what we are. And so it becomes difficult, I think, to do as much local as we've done. And look, some's been a home run, and it's like everything else. Some's killed it. Some hasn't worked, and that's just part of it, right? You learn as you go, and I think stick to the principles that this is who we are and who we want to be. We're a local company that wants to serve our community.
Right, and in a way that's relatable. You don't want to have these big personalities come on talking about a big personality way. You want to have them talking about what's going on Perkins, on Acadian,
right.
in everybody's community. And so it's not bringing in somebody from out of town. It's building up those within.
Yeah, exactly. And again, we talk about how much, I talk about how many people are in the space now. How many people are talking about the NFL? I mean, you could find 1 million people, right? How many people are really talking about what's going on at LSU that has inside information connections?
Right.
Smaller. I mean, it's more now, but it's still smaller, right? How many people are getting on, what was topical today? I mean, when John Bell Edwards puts in that thing that you got to wear a mask statewide, and so how many places in the city are you really going to get something that's fresh and up to date? There's only one hand probably.
Right.
And so we want to be one of those.
Yeah, outside of going down and scrolling through your Instagram feed of everybody else posting about it,
Right.
You don't have a mainstream, a mainstream source coming at us locally saying, hey, JBE
Right.
is now mandating all this stuff.
Yeah, and I think the important part of it, you ask about Facebook Live, and what I like about Facebook Live, to me, it's become the new request line.
Right.
And so I think that, that was, I think that's one of the things that I think getting radio disc jockeys, I don't care if you're on a music station, you've got to be engaged and interact with the community. We talked about music, and during the COVID shutdown, Michelle Southern does afternoons for us on Eagle 98.1. Mm-hmm. She worked from her home with the technology, and she was able to do a radio show. But they were doing live Zoom interviews. They were interacting. Mm-hmm. She did her own show where she would interact with all the listeners. It was phenomenal, and they've kept up that sort of engagement. So again, I think putting our influencers out wherever people are consuming media, you've got to be there. For Twitter, obviously sports and news. Facebook's got lifestyles. It's got some demographics. Instagram. God bless, somebody's going to have to get on TikTok. It's not going to be me. I know our guys are. I've seen enough TikTok. I was like, I'm not doing TikTok.
Yeah. TikTok is interesting, especially with the whole legislation happening around TikTok and potentially banning it from the states. But like you said, on Facebook, I can have somebody comment, and especially if you're on a live radio show, like Jay will read off comments left and right, and so will Brian Haldane.
Right. And
that sense of, kind of you're a part of the show. It's not whenever somebody tries to call in, they're going to call in 10 times and not get an answer, and they're going to feel like they're not involved. On Facebook, I can send a comment and I'm involved.
That's right.
You're now engaging.
You can also, let's go back to so I grew up radio. I would listen to B97 in New Orleans to see if they would say, hey, Gordy from the West Bank wanted to hear the Go-Go's or whatever the heck it was, right? And that was the level of engagement. Now, not only, Patty G, he said this is his feelings on the mask. Not only you recognize and you feel like you're a part of the show, but you're engaging with all of the people on the Facebook Live. It becomes a chat room, and that's what you've wanted to do. And I kudos to Brian Haldane. He works his tail off, and obviously, we went through a transition, and Fox News was making a transition in the midday show. So let's do 2 shows right now. Yeah. And now we've settled in. He's 6A to 9A right now. We've time shifted Brian Kilmeade to 10 to 1 daily. But for Haldane, I get excited when I see 42, 44 people that are on Facebook Live that are engaged at 6:30 in the morning.
Right.
Right. You talk about the new alarm clock. The new alarm clock. There's not alarm clocks anymore, right? People get up. What's the first thing people do? They're checking their social media, whatever it is, and I want to be there. I want to be engaged, and he's done a great job with that.
Yeah, and now I get a notification on my phone at 6 a.m. when he goes live. Hey, Talk 107.3 is live.
Yes, absolutely.
And having the notifications that as soon as you're live, and it's going to stay a notification until I open up, and the first thing I pull up on Facebook is going to be Talk 107.3's live page. And I'm able to click on that, and especially now at work, that you have that ability to pull it up and put it in like a little corner of your screen where you're still interacting and seeing it, but you're also working. It's not disrupting your workflow. And that level of, just interaction I find just amazing. Brian will have 40, 50 comments by the end of a show that people are just interacting back and forth.
And that's what, and I think the beautiful thing about that is you got a show going on within a show, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And you get real-time feedback on all the above with that. So, kudos to Brian, both of them. Brian, and then we knew Jay was bringing a tribe over. I'm a big fan of, if you were to start radio stations today, and so 20 years ago is about who sounded the best. Mm-hmm. Today, I think sound is some of it, but who's an influencer and has a tribe?
Right.
Because when you talk to the people that are going to advertise, local people that are going to stick with you through a COVID. I'm Take Relief Windows, Brandon Holly, tremendous local, right? When you get Moscona or the people that do his stuff that refer 10 to 12 jobs, where he's getting, hey, I heard you on Moscona say this. That doesn't happen, right? When Home Depot runs a recorded commercial,
Right.
and they're buying spots and dots or the cheapest rate.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I mean, I'm even, it's interesting TV hasn't done that, and I understand why. In that this world, marketing is really, influencer marketing is just taken off, and either you got racehorses or you don't. And I want racehorses that are influencers that are going to move the needle for listeners and advertisers.
Right, but you want them to be relatable.
Yeah.
You want them to be local, like you said.
Oh, yeah, the local. No question.
Local.
The
You don't
local.
want to just go find out a racehorse and bring him in because then nobody's going to listen to him.
Yeah, other than ESPN, am I really going to, in ESPN for us, I mean, and obviously they've evolved, and their national lineup's not as good as it was when it was Van Pelt and Rosillo, and our Van Pelt in his prime, and when you had Greeny and Golick, I mean, Mike and Mike. But ESPN's a brand that we're buying, right? It's okay. Right. So we've built our brand on ESPN, so that's part of that. I mean, they have play-by-play and stuff like that. But by and large, I'm not going to win the national game, right? I mean, one of the things that iHeart can do, or Premiere, which is a network that has Rush Limbaugh, we've got 225 radio stations, right? I'm not going to win that game.
Yeah.
I can win the local game, but I'm not going to win that game. So we're going to play in the water where we can win.
Yeah, and it's more important, at least from my perspective, to win your local game over the national game, because you're not going to see all those people outside of your local community every day.
Right.
But you're going to go to Rouse's, or you're going to go to Calvin's Bocage Market, and you're going to run into people that know you from your local media.
Right. No question. And I think, again, the advertisers, and, without getting all the details, I know how we fared through this COVID. Everybody in media has been affected. And we've shared numbers, and so we've fared much better than most. I mean, considerably, and so it's been a blessing for our team. But I think it's also the connection that you have, local relationships. Whereas Home Depot is buying at a $6 cost per point. If they can find 4, see you later.
Yeah,
get the 3 gone. They don't care who you are. You're just we're buying it. We're going to buy as many points as we can at $1. There's no loyalty there, and I think that's one of the things we've been able to build.
Yeah, it's a loyal consumer base that's going to watch
Absolutely.
your product and also sponsor the product. So going to the video side of things, you said that we could get into the Vivio or whatever y'all left.
So we were on ESPN. ESPN, obviously we do 6 hours on CST now. When we started over the top, I'm a big believer, obviously. I mean, you get me in the video space. My kids see a commercial on TV and they lose their mind, right? I mean, watching their behaviors and what have you. And, since I've been home, and I don't usually get a TV. We got 3 and I got 4, so I'm outnumbered. But usually when I get kicked to the couch at 2 in the morning, because one of my kids have run into my bedroom and thrown me out, I connect to TV as all the that I consume, unless it's a live sporting event. And I don't really watch local news. Is so time shifted on demand. You can get that right when you want. But I wanted to be able to take our LSU content. The beautiful thing about LSU is it has a worldwide fan base.
Right.
Right. Well, I've seen an LSU Alabama postgame our postgame was on in 64 different countries, including 4 in Africa. Right.
Jeez.
And so you needed to be there. So we launched on Vimeo, and I launched on Vimeo, and we were with Vimeo when we started. And so Vimeo is a platform for video creators and what have you. And it looked good. It looks like Netflix, and they gave you our own app, and we did all that. And we did it for 2 years. And what we realized, we didn't get the numbers that we wanted because nobody was on Vimeo.
Yeah.
And YouTube obviously involved. They have YouTube TV and YouTube Live. And so we went from paying Vimeo, a couple $1,000s a month, right, to moving to YouTube Live, which is free. Right. And I get paid every time somebody clicks it, and I can insert my own things. And so you talk about this really, we were able to take what we call Guaranty Sports Network, which is our video piece. And it's become like a 5th radio station income-wise. So you have the money from the commercials that go on the CST, and then
Right.
we're able to go over the top. What I love about YouTube Live is that everybody's already on YouTube. It's the biggest platform. They're already there. So you have a lot of people that are finding us that don't know anything about us, that because if you're doing the right search and the tags and you put in LSU, or you put in Pelicans, or you put in Coach Orgeron or Joe Burrow, they're going to find you.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get them there, all of a sudden now we've got people on that radio station in all 50 states that listen daily, watch daily, and all the above. And so, you know, and it comes back to what you talk about, YouTube. Then I can get behind the curtain and show you, well, here's what we got. This is what we're seeing, and all the above. I tell you, we just switched from Vimeo on June 24th and lit up YouTube Live this past week. First week out, and we really haven't told anybody. Numbers went up sixfold.
Really?
Right, the amount of people that watch over the top.
Oh, you're transitioning from what is originally a video platform with a reasonable amount of users to a video platform with the most amount of users.
Yeah,
you're moving your content to where the attention is.
Right. So I just took my shows from False River and put them in the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah,
that's the best, right? And so that's where all the fish are.
Right.
And so, but it comes back to, man, I don't have all the answers, and I've made mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes, but you learn as you go. And actually, where we found about it, and I'm a big believer in, we have this tremendous network in our industry, and we went on the YouTube Live from Dave Ramsey and saw the way that he did it, and we copied and pasted what he did it, and numbers, I mean, they make from YouTube is phenomenal, and so that's part of this business. It's constantly evolving. Right. And so you have to evolve with it, and you got to grow thick skin, and don't be afraid to make mistakes, because it's going to happen. And right. And learn from it, and then move on. And I think that's what we've done in the video space on ESPN. And then hopefully we're going to get there and talk soon as we get some sanity from all this, the shutdown, and we're not doing PPP loans and all the above. Talk's next. Right. I mean, you think about Ducote and all the content that he can do. So we're excited about where Jay's going.
Yeah, and the technology is there. I mean, yes. I'm in the process of getting a Mevo to swap out for my iPhone,
right,
where I can stream to Facebook, I can stream to LinkedIn, I can stream to YouTube, all simultaneously.
We started with Mevo, right? And
right.
So I think for you it's perfect. And I remember seeing it in Las Vegas about 6 years ago, and was blown away. You could sit with a phone and switch cameras, and I think an entrepreneur like yourself, it's incredible technology. And that's the thing, it keeps getting better.
Oh, yeah.
Every year, and the things that you want to do. And I love what you do with your show. You're pushing it everywhere people can consume it. You've
right.
got to be in those spaces, right? If I'm just pushing this in one funnel, if it's just radio, I'm missing people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is going to where the attention is, like making the move from Vimeo to YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, financially, I haven't finished the numbers. That's next week's project. I mean, you're talking about maybe $100,000 to $200,000 swing.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have potential for this.
Right.
On YouTube. Right. When Jordy Culotta asked Joe Burrow's mom, G-string, it was a play on words. Greg Stringfell's the equipment manager at LSU. He asked her about G-string, and she said, "Excuse me." The number, I mean, it's one of those things that just rocketed.
Right.
And we made like $700 off that video. Right. And so that's the thing about YouTube. You got that scary upside.
Yeah.
And understanding YouTube and becoming a YouTube, they got people making $1 million off of YouTube.
Easy.
Just, I mean, with that. And so, okay, how, do I want to go fight Home Depot and say, hey, instead of, I need you at this price, or fight over $1 because a competitor wants to offer $2 more, you want to go find another path to grow.
Yeah.
And so that's what we've done.
And I've seen articles, left and right, talking about the new form of consuming media and the media creators. And 3 of the logos that they had on top media creators were YouTube creators.
Yes.
And they were just YouTube individuals and brands that they've built up this mass following strictly from YouTube.
Yeah, it's great. 2012, I want to say, 2014, there's a guy named Mark Ramsey that's an influencer, was a radio guy. I went to his conference, which was called Hivio in San Diego. And go Google it. You get a chance. Hivio, he does a thing with a Star Wars Open, and he talks about going big or go home. And I was sitting in the audience, and he tells me, he said, meet Andrea so-and-so. She's 17. Last year, she made $2.8 million off of YouTube, just about how she fixes her hair and what have you. And he said, if you're in the radio business, do you want her to do morning drive? Yes, please.
Yeah.
I don't care whether or not, she's got 100% DJ voice. She's got a tribe. She has a following. She's going to move products. She's going to move listeners. Exactly what you've built up. You've got this business community where when this is published, well, if you're into this people want to follow you. And
right.
and so and I think that's been a shift. It definitely was a shift for me, right? Because I wasn't a broadcast guy. I wasn't a conventional person. It's nice that, you want the commercials to sound good, but if all you're going to do is go do a shift and sound good, your ceiling's low in my book. Yeah, and the game's changed. 20 years ago, you had a high ceiling. Mm-hmm. Game's changed.
Yeah, it's now how can you and where can you reach them in a way that's appealing to them.
Correct.
Because audio and quality is, to me, if you want to have that quantity over quality to get out everything where you can, but because the quality is so easy to maintain.
Well, I'll watch, and you got incredible equipment here, right?
Right.
Okay. It's not an exact TV studio, but I'll watch this, right? We'll watch people. You'll watch Joe Biden from his basement on a Facebook Live video because people. It's more about that than not everything has got to be TV quality anymore. Right. Is my point with that? I think some of it's from audio, and that you're willing. I'm gonna consume Patty G wherever he is. Right. That's where I'm at on that. I'm gonna follow. Matt Moscona He will do his morning scone sometimes when they're driving his child to the hospital, and he'll have 120 people on it because he's Matt Moscona.
Right.
Because he's got a following. The hottest post-game show, and I'm trying to figure out what to do, they do whiskey and wine, Moscona and Colada, right, in which the numbers are astronomical, and they're drinking with hats on, on two different couches. They're not at Tiger Stadium. They don't have a set. They don't have any of that. But people are there because they both are very popular and they have tribes. Game's changed, right? And so you got to change with it.
I love that. And so before we got started, you said there was a story behind the Mockler situation.
Right. So great story. So Tim Mockler, Patrick Mockler, the whole family, dear friends. Mr. Gary Mockler just passed this year in 2020. So I've been friends with them for so long. My favorite Tim story is that he supported. I went to the U.S. bobsled trials in Lake Placid in 1997. So I was sponsored by Mockler Beverage. So I'm Mockler for life, right? And if God forbid, I think if I ever walked in with another beer can, I would get tackled. So I'm 100% Mockler, and that's as competitive a field as I've ever seen, and that's evolved, right? That went from Bud to this, and everybody's got craft beer, and I didn't even know what White Claw was until like November. They put that in there, so I'm getting old, but now they went from having like 5 or 6 beverages to 200, and so and that's why I tell them, I was like, look, I try to stay safe and drink ultra because I don't know whose beer belongs to who anymore, especially when you get in with craft. And you have all the independent craft people. And so, don't hear this. Or I say, pour that thing in a damn styrofoam cup. Because you don't do a clear cup. Because they know what the beer looks like. They know the color of the beer.
Yeah.
They'll bust your ass. You need to put it in a styrofoam cup and be secretive if you're going to go that route. But I never go that route. Never, ever go that route.
Never. Only Mockler.
That's right.
Mockler for life.
That's correct. Exactly.
Okay, so starting to kind of wind down with the show. You've done a lot over your career thus far. What are some of the lessons that you've learned along the way? Let's say three different lessons you've learned along the way.
So culture. Culture's everything, I probably spend, more of my, during COVID especially, but I will listen to some podcasts, and obviously there's some sports in there, but it's coaching, it's management, it's about culture, and especially, I told our people, our department head team, is that I want everybody, right? Everybody that's in the boat has to want to be in the boat right now. If they don't want to, nothing personal. Life's too short. Go find something you want to do. It goes back to what we talked about. Everybody needs to be in the boat, rowing the boat. And right now we're rowing the boat with our back to the front, and we're going into some brutal rapids.
Right.
And so I think, by and large, for me, the culture at Guaranty and the family who I have from Ducote, and I think Brian does a great job with his group, and having that culture. Because if you don't have culture, you don't have the culture set, right? You're screwed. I don't care what your business is. And 90% of my job is people, when they come to work, 9 times out of 10, they need to cross that threshold wanting to be there. One day a week, people are going to have crap days. It happens, right?
Yeah, it's
going to happen. But 9 out of 10, if you can get that done, you're halfway home. I think that's the first part. I'll tell you number 2, and I love Will Wade said this. He rephrased it better, and I forget the way I used to say it. But so I've always been more of an extrovert and not afraid to fail. But he says that chance favors the aggressor. I don't mind making a mistake. I'm going to make them. We're going to go wide open. I'm going to play my cards at the end of the day when this is all done. Check, XXX, and I can live with that. Right? Just hoping that there are more checks than X's with that. So I think that just not being afraid to fail, right, and all the above. And I think that in, the last thing that I think football taught me, especially being a defensive back, and there were so many great life skills. Forget about athletics, right? Life skill, from discipline to time management, but just then skin, especially being a defensive back where everybody talk trash and all the above, is that, look, people are going to talk about you, and I don't give a rat's ass. At the end of the day, all that matters, I'm going to look in the mirror, and I can live with me and the decisions that we made, right? And, I think if you're an entrepreneur, especially, you're going to have a lot of people. You have people that say, what's he doing? What's going on? No, is this another show? But at the end of the day, you've got to grow thin skin and do something you're passionate about and just block out the noise. And if you're able to do that, I think that those things kind of, to me, that those have helped along the way. And I'm real passionate about that.
I love that. What is something you did as a kid that you would still do today if no one stopped you?
I would, it's great. Like COVID, I think, has brought so much out, right? People riding bikes.
Yeah.
So, I grew up, my dad played golf, right? He played football. He played for the Saints and what have you. And obviously there was a tie there. Played at Baton Rouge High Tulane Saints. Mm-hmm. And so that was always a bond. He passed in 2007. But our thing was that as a little boy, I was a caddy and go ride in the golf cart. And I played as a young boy and still play today. And so, I'll tell you, last night at 8:30, we played out at Greystone. They played glow in the dark balls, and we played 18 holes, and I finished at 12-10. And
with Casey.
Yeah, with Casey. That's right. Yeah. But I mean, the beautiful thing about it is, you've been limited what you could do. And 5:30, if I'm not the type that's going to sit around and watch Netflix.
Right.
I mean, there have been times that I will go out there and walk. I walked before carts were sterilized and played golf until the sun came down. And the good thing is that I think by nature it's kind of intense and uptight. I am. And then to be successful in golf, my last swing, and not that I'm a great golfer, my last swing thought is grip pressure. You got to go from a 10 to a 2 and just relax and swing smooth. It forces you to relax. And so it's an escape. It reminds me of my father. And, I grew up on a golf course down in New Orleans. And it was the second time I'd been there the last week since he passed. And, I don't, my dad, don't know if you've had, I'm sure you've had relatives that passed, but especially my dad, it's really still surreal. Mm-hmm. And I just found myself in tears the whole way going through it because it was golf, because it was that home course. And so for that's my escape, my world.
Yeah, on the golf course.
Yeah, it's golf course. So just clear your head, relax, block out the noise, put the cell phone down, right?
Right.
And just do that. So that's been, so many blessings from this slowdown. That, and I've probably quadrupled the amount of time that I spent with my kids.
Yeah, I think everybody has kind of refound themselves within COVID.
No question.
It not only was an opportunity, but it forced us to. It forced us because we had so much time on our hands at the house,
Right.
just not working or working remotely, that we had to really realize what was important to us.
It's incredible that you met that. And there's so much time. I mean, just sitting outside and talking to my wife like this, right?
Yeah.
And put the kids down. So my oldest kid has had some, he was our first child. He's 12. Had some ADH, ear tubes, and I go through a couple of things. And he's done great in school. But, he missed 9 weeks and all the above. And I sat down with my wife and I said, I was a 16-year-old senior in high school. Mm-hmm. And so I was young, right? And
right.
So I'm up at Purdue playing as a 17-year-old freshman in the Big Ten in the snow at Iowa, freezing my ass off. And so it was an adjustment. It was a learning curve. And so, we sat down there, and I spent so much time with my oldest son, and he's starting to get interested in things. And I just looked at Ash. I said, we should have him repeat 6th grade, right? I want to hold him back. And at the end of the day, you go back and forth with that decision, and he was okay with it. I told her, I said, I want another year with my kid back. I can live with that decision. But this light's come on. I've spent so much time with my kid. Screw what everybody else has. If I got a chance, and this is, obviously in the COVID, they're allowing that because they've missed so much school. I want another year with my kid back. Those are the stories I'm going to remember.
Yeah.
Right out of this thing. And that really hit home because, before that, with everything goes on in our profession, you're in a hamster wheel.
Oh, 100%.
Right. And so you don't have a chance to figure that out. So I feel, this has been a blessing for that.
Yeah. And you really realize what you want to do with your life because you don't have the opportunity to get caught up in just running through the motions.
No doubt.
You're like, we spent weeks just at the house where it was me, my wife and I, and we're like, okay, we got in some real deep conversation, and after we just grew from that, and it was amazing. It was beautiful, and just going in and running down the streets, to go for an afternoon run and just seeing everybody outside reminded me, like, okay, we all do know how to slow down. We have it in us to slow down and kind of take a step back and retrain our minds to think of what is truly important, and family just always comes to the forefront.
So interesting question we talk about. So I don't think we ever go back to 100% hamster wheel. So somewhere in the middle is where this thing lands.
Yeah, we never go back to a pre-COVID lifestyle.
No question. No question. I don't think that, for me, I don't, right?
Right.
For some, this is the best physical shape I'll be in for the rest of my life because you're in that crap, right? I'm outside so much. I'm working out with my kid, playing golf at 9 o'clock at night and do whatever the heck we're doing. I'll never go back. But to your point, I enjoy the slower pace.
Right.
Right. And so it's been a cleansing, and it's also been in football, they call it an open week, right? And that's kind of and they call it a self-check, right? Or you get a chance to grade yourself. This has been a glorified open week, right? A couple of months. But,
4 or 5 months.
Open half a year. But to point, it's a chance for you to look in the mirror and figure out who you are or where you want to be. And it's been, especially at 51, right? Because for me, life at 50 at this age went away. It's not about me anymore. It's about my kids, right?
Right.
It's about my family. It's about my kids. And so, gradually start doing less Gordy things and more kid things.
Yeah. What,
Now it's nice and cool. We should
now
have started at 8:30, right? No, it's good.
We should start it later. I don't think our wives would like that, though.
No, we'd be in trouble.
Oh, yeah. What's 2 things you like about Baton Rouge? Or what do you love most about Baton Rouge?
So I like being from New Orleans. I like the pace of Baton Rouge, where it's not New Orleans. So New Orleans is my hometown, right? And so, I got recruited by Tulane, and the first thing is like, I need to get out of here. My friends are staying out till 4 a.m. There's nowhere you're going to be an athlete in New Orleans. I think it's a good. I like it as in terms of the pace of so forth and so on. Obviously, what I love about LSU, it's not the sports side. What I love about Baton Rouge is it's a melting pot of the state, and it's brought so many people, and I have so many friends and that are connected throughout the state, right? And for that, also LSU and the athletic thing has opened up doors, through that, and so I like the community feel, right, of Baton Rouge. Obviously, everything has some challenges. Every community has some, but I like the medium-sized city feel. Specifically, so my wife is from Central, and so we live in Central, which was culture shock.
Yeah.
Right. My first night I moved out there, Sammy's Grill was closed at 10:30, and at the time Jason and Central and Jason Jackson was working with Sammy's. I remember calling him. I was like, "How are you shut down at 10:30 in Central and you stay up until 4 on Highland Road?" Which was an inside joke, which wasn't exactly true. So it took some time for me to adjust, but
Right.
I love. We've got 2.5 acres and Comey Hills, and it's a real country feel, and I think it just really fits where I want to raise a family.
I love that. That seems to be a reoccurring theme of the guest is the community aspect of Baton Rouge, the little big town that Baton Rouge is. We're not
Right.
massive, but we're at a good size where everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, and that there's enough relationships and this great network. But I'm not sure how it adjusts to a small town, right, where you saw
Right.
people all the time. But it's not. When I was in New York 4 or 5 times this year. Love visiting New York. Could not live in New York, right? Couldn't. I mean, you can't pay me to go back to L.A., right? I've already seen L.A. And so yeah, I think that. And then I love the way that part of the job, which we hadn't talked about, is just all the different organizations we're involved with. And that the people in Baton Rouge care. They
Right.
care about the community. They're engaged. They're involved, and you can say that. I'm sure a lot about definitely some communities, especially our size. But you can say I enjoy that aspect, right?
Yeah, having people care and know you and wanting to help you in any way they can.
Right. No question. Yeah, I like that. I like that part of it, right?
Right.
I like that. The other thing about Baton Rouge, I can eat a little healthier here than New Orleans, right?
I don't think either of them have a really healthy menu across the restaurants.
Look, Danny and Clyde's, right, is the seafood place in a lot of gas stations in New Orleans. I'm like, when you can get incredible seafood po' boys in a gas station, you're exposed. You can't, right? At least I can eat somewhat healthy in Baton Rouge.
Right. When you start going to the gas stations and they have killer food.
Oh no.
There's no chance.
Danny and Clyde's, their 3,000 calorie lunch. There's no way of skirting around it. It's as good as any po' boy in the city.
Yeah, we used to where I grew up, my high school years and the latter part of middle school. They had Pop and Goes on the corner of 30 and 74.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, you would have to stand outside the gas station to get their lunch special, and it just shows you that our food and our culture is just so heavily weighted together, hand in hand.
Right. I mean, look, when I'm able to duck out and just get a Subway egg white, on wheat, I don't think I'd ever. I don't know if there's Subway in New Orleans. Just joking.
Yeah. But for one final question, following along the lines of the community and helping. What is something that I can do to help you?
I think what you're doing and continuing to be passionate about this space is that it's building. You're an influencer, and I think you're connecting people in the business. And I get a chance of watching numerous of your numerous podcasts, and I'm learning so much about the community that I didn't know. And there are opportunities that saw Brian's show, both Brian's, and that you're giving people the opportunity to connect, and I think that's ultimately what I'm in the business for, right? I mean, the same thing is that we're local, and we want to grow our community and let people tell their story. People love stories, and that's what you're doing.
Yeah, people. That's the way I learn best. So it's a selfish motive. I can learn from everybody else coming on the show.
No question.
But at the same time, everybody's got a story to share that is impactful and everybody can learn from.
Whether it's restaurants, you know, you know, I forget where I you know, originally I knew nothing about Soji when it opened, right?
Yeah.
And remember, I forget what platform it was where you learned about the story. You know, that was the story behind it. And people love good stories, right? I'm going to go support and that's when you reached out. I love what you're doing. I ran out of time. I was trying to do a little podcast. My world got too crazy. I'm like, Haldane, shut it down. No, I can't. I don't have time to do it. But it was similar because I enjoy the same thing with you, just talking to people. And it was driven and talk about some stories and success. But I mean, my schedule, first of all, we couldn't give me a studio space.
Right.
I couldn't get a studio space in my own building. That was the problem. But that's ultimately, you want to see people succeed. You want to hear great stories. You want to hear stories about this community, local people that are doing fantastic, you know. Before I came here, I went to Doe's, right, to stop by and see our people. There's a great local business. It's, you know, Scott's done a great job, supports Folds of Honor as a community, connected community-wise. Well, I'm going to go support him.
Yeah, and that's what the goal of the show is, to highlight those in the community doing great things.
Absolutely.
And just keep their stories going. But
well, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, and thanks for doing this. I think it's, you know, it's one of those things. I think it pays tenfold, right? It opens doors and you know, it in so many different ways. That's what for my career, talking about LSU or going out and emceeing auctions, it's just opened up doors, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be monetary. It's relationships and things like that. That's pretty cool, right?
The relationships are the most important part.
And
whatever happens, monetary
right?
just
And
happens.
Monetary is a side. I mean, so many different stories that, you know, that you know, one of the biggest things we support. I'll end with this is the Dreams Come True of Louisiana, right? So it helps fulfill dreams for children that are fighting life-threatening illnesses. And look, it's not the size of St. Jude's, and St. Jude's is incredible. But when I sit down and there's 18, 20 kids that we can help, like send them to Disney World and something where I can put, you know, a face with that and moves the needle, you know, that's why you're in it. That's your why, you know, your cynic why, right? Yeah.
Well, thank you, Gordy, for coming on, man.
No,
I really
thanks for having me.
appreciate it.
Thanks for a great setup, man.
Yeah, that's setups to Carl. But,
Carl, all Carl.
all Carl. And thank you all for listening or watching, whichever platform you're hearing this on. I really appreciate it. I know the guests do as well. So if you want to learn more about Gordy and what he's doing, check out Guaranty Media on all social platforms. Check out Talk 107.3 and all their other radio stations. And also give the show a like, follow, and subscribe. I'm Patty G with the Patty G Show, signing out with Gordy Rush. Y'all have a good one. Thanks.
I'm a simple